Hi all, this is Allmighty and welcome to this video. Another video about José Capablanca. Yeah, what a joyful event. Let's continue with the story. So essentially, now that we finished with the exhibition match of 1901 where 13-year-old Capablanca played against Juan Corzo, we move on to the Cuban Chess Championship of 1902. There was a championship held between 6 players. Capablanca was one of them, so championship was played in a round robin, so which essentially means that you play against each opponent in the championship, and there were 2 rounds. So Capablanca could play against each player with white and black pieces. In that case, you can really see who is the best player in Cuba. Championship, as I said, was held in 1902, and the strongest and the most famous players were actually participating. One of the players was Enrique Corzo, so I have a game with Capablanca and Corzo here. Enrique Corzo was actually Juan's brother. He was a bit weaker from Juan, but again, he wasn't a bad player. He also showed some skill. Okay, so the game, I'm showing this game essentially because there aren't that many games recorded, or I mean, I didn't find any games. I only found 2 games of that championship, and I personally think this is a better one to show you. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be covering this championship only for 1 video, but yeah, what can you do? And just one more thing, I failed to mention in the previous 2 videos one important thing about Capablanca. Yeah, Capablanca is a younger player, so at 13 years old, he tends to play really fast in his chess games. Kasparov even went there and said, he had one quote where he told that Capablanca was lazy, because essentially he wanted to go and played the forcing lines, and he just didn't want to sit down, think about the position, and find the moves which would then easier win the game. We all knew what he was capable of when he just played really fast. Imagine what he could do at that young age if he would just sit down and think about it. But okay, I think we can forgive him. After all, he was a 13-year-old boy. He also had some other things to think about at that age, you know. After that, when he matured, he started to play slower and more concentrated. Yeah, so okay, let's get to the game. So, as I've said, a game between Capablanca and Corzo, Enrique Corzo, and yeah, it went like this. So, e4, e5. Now that he is playing against Enrique, not Juan, he can actually play e4. He isn't afraid of d4. So, knight to f3. Knight to c6 and bishop to b5. So this is a Ruy Lopez, also known as the Spanish defense. And now knight g to e7, a Cozio defense. Me personally, I don't like to play against this opening. My preference is if the player plays a6, the Morphy defense, I just take on c6 and go into the exchange variation of the Spanish. I feel much more comfortable there, but okay, this is also a good opening. People on the higher levels also played, so yeah, no worries there. I just don't like to play against it. So Capablanca castled, normal move, and now g6. So this is a pretty common theme in this opening for black. Black wants to put the bishop on g7, castle, and push f5 to expand in the center. So okay, Capablanca takes on c6, knight c6, and now d4, expand in the center. E takes d4, knight takes d4, and now you shouldn't take the knight on d4, so because queen to d4 attacks the rook, and now you don't want to put the rook on g8 because then you have a problem castling. You probably have to play f6, and kind of mess up your pawn structure in front of the king. So definitely don't want to take on d4, rather play bishop g7 like Corzo played in the game. And now c3 because the knight is attacked twice. You have to defend it, and Corzo plays d6. Okay, so bishop to e3, now developing, bishop to e7, attacking the pawn on e4. So yeah, you have to defend it, and the best way to do it, develop and defend. So this knight is now defending the e4 pawn, and now knight to e5, centralizing the knight. Always a good thing to do. So much better to centralize this knight so you can cover more ground in the center. Sorry. rather than taking it on d4. And the main threat here is actually to jump on g4. When the knight jumps on g4, he attacks this bishop on e3, and Corzo would really like to exchange the knight for the bishop. Then he has a bishop pair, which is much stronger in the future than having two knights. Capablanca, of course, stops this with h3, and now a strange move by Corzo, h5. I mean, this is also a move that you can play. It's not like really bad, but I would consider it a better move maybe for blitz games, but not for normal games, because it is a slow move and doesn't really threaten anything right away. So now Capablanca played f4, and yeah, he expanded in the center. A really good principle that you can always count on is if somebody attacks you on the side, you just push in the center, because yeah, then you get a better game. And now we come to a first mistake by Corzo, c5. It is a mistake, and I will show you later why, but he could have just played knight to c6. Now, it doesn't make sense really to capture on c6. I mean, you double up the pawns, but you don't really have any like real advantage. You have to go to the endgame, and maybe then you can take advantage of these double pawns. But right away, not really, because black has the bishop pair now, and yeah, essentially you have to think about maybe bishop to d4 now to exchange at least one of the bishop or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't suggest also taking on c6. You can play something else, maybe return the knight, or yeah, just develop the pieces, rook to e1, something like that. But okay, Corzo played c5, and now Capablanca actually missed a move that could yeah, maybe bring him closer to the win right away. So he could have just captured on e5, because essentially he just wins a pawn. So if takes on d4, takes on d6, queen has to take, and now so knight to c4 actually first. And now you're attacking the knight and also releasing your queen, so you have another attacker on the d4 square. Yeah, so if the queen just stays somewhere here, d7 for example, you can just capture, and you have two pawns in the center. And if you move the queen on c7 for example, yeah, you can also capture with the bishop, because now this doesn't make sense. Bishop captures on g7, rook g8, and bishop d4. White is much better here. He has the control of these dark squares in front of the king. He cannot castle, and he also has to think about, yeah, what to do actually here. Also, bishop to f6 is also a good move here, because it's threatening checkmate. So yeah, there are some threats. So yeah, Capablanca could have just taken on e5, but okay, he decided after c5 that he wants to bring the knight back. And okay, now here Corzo played bishop to h6, and now actually Capablanca made a mistake. He played bishop to c5. It is a move, but it isn't the best move. I mean, it's not a losing move, so you're not just giving away the bishop, but the better move here is actually to play rook to e1. And probably it is a difficult line, so probably that is why Capablanca didn't play it. As I've said, he played really fast, so he didn't spend so much time calculating the lines. The line goes something like this. If the knight attacks on d3, you can actually play knight to c4. And now if black takes on e1, knight to d6 is with check. So the problem is you don't want to go on the d line, because the knight can then jump, and it is a discovered check from the queen. So you go king to f8, bishop takes on c5, and now this bishop is going like this, and it's a problem because the queen and the king are on the same diagonal. So now you go king to g8, and now knight captures on c8. So this is a double attack from the knight and from the bishop to the queen, and you cannot capture the knight because, yeah, just take the queen. So queen captures on e4, and now knight to e7, first check. Then the queen cannot capture because of the bishop, so you go king to h7, and now you just capture the knight. And after the queen captures, rook captures, you have two pieces for the knight, for the rook. And as you saw in the previous game, it is essentially much better to have two pieces. And Corzo couldn't even take on f4 because of rook to f1, and when the bishop moves, you just capture the pawn on f7. Not looking too good for black. So okay, yeah, went maybe too deep into that variation, but yeah, essentially Capablanca should have played rook to e1. But okay, he played bishop takes on c5, and now Corzo took on c5, and Capablanca took on e5. And now Corzo should have just went for a castle, and yeah, he has a normal play. He can play bishop to e6, and then, or take on e5, and then play bishop to e6, develop. He has a bishop pair, and he doesn't mind. He is in a good position. But instead of that, he didn't go castle, he played bishop to e3 check. Okay, king to h1. Still, he could have go and castle. No harm done, you gave a check. Move on, yeah, you made a mistake, doesn't matter. But he played queen to e5, and this is like a terrible, terrible blunder. Now, yeah, Capablanca of course sees the best move, which is knight to c4. And now you're attacking the queen and the bishop. Okay, you can defend the bishop. Corzo played queen to g5. And now Capablanca missed a destroying move, knight to d6. Again, king doesn't want to go on the d line because essentially going to d8 or d7, just knight f7 takes, and yeah, the queen gives a check and you take the queen. He goes to f8, and again, knight to f7, you're forking the queen and the rook. And also when you move the knight, you give a discover check, so something like this, king to here, for example. Yeah, this is like super bad for Corzo. And okay, Capablanca didn't play it, but he played also a good move. So instead of knight to d6 check, he played queen to f3, threatening to give a check on f7, and also threatening to take on e3. The check on f7 is problematic because you move on the d line and then goes a check with the rook. Essentially, yeah, it's going to the worse and more worse position. Corzo played the bishop to e6 to defend on f7, and now Capablanca takes on e3. Essentially, you lose a piece because now, of course, he cannot take on c4 because queen to g5 loses the queen. And yeah, Corzo just played queen to e7. And now here, Capablanca saved the piece. He played knight to a3. b6 defending the c5 pawn because he was attacked with the queen and the knight. And now the game moves on. Normal development by Capablanca, rook 8 to d1, and now a5. e5 expanding in the center, and a4, so pushing the knight. Knight to d2. I would even suggest to play knight to d2, even if he wouldn't play a4, because now knight can go to e4 and jump to d6 or even f6. The knight in one of those squares would really be a good knight. But okay, Corzo captures on a2, and Capablanca decided, yeah, I want to block this bishop and exchange them. This is also a good approach. c4, f5, yeah, you cannot go en passant because the queen is hanging, so rook to a1. Bishop has to go to b3 to save it. Capablanca capturing queen to b3. And now queen to e6, defending the b6 pawn. You cannot capture on e5 because rook to e1 and you lose the queen. So queen to e6. But now Capablanca has this knight to b5 and he can jump to c7, forking the king, the queen, and the rook. Okay, there is this move that, an in-between move that Corzo can play, rook to a1, but Capablanca still plays knight to c7, he gives a check, king to f7, and he captures the queen. Rook captures on f1, king h2, and now Corzo captures the knight, but unfortunately, yeah, king is wide open, and Capablanca can use this to his advantage. Queen to b6 is the best move. And now after king took on e5, Capablanca took on c5, and here Corzo resigned the game. And the reason he resigned the game here because eventually this rook on h8 will fall. The thing is, okay, if the black king goes on dark square, for example f6, queen d4, king has to move, and you just pick up the rook. So, but if we go back, so if the king goes on the light square, for example e4 or e6, so e4, first check like this. Now you have to go to the dark square, for example here, and then check again. You're losing the rook. The same would happen if king goes to e6. Check first here, you go here and check, loses the rook. One other interesting variation that I wanted to show you is actually if king goes to f4, then queen d4, king g5, only move, and now you actually have a mate in 2. If you want, you can pause the video. This could be a nice puzzle for you to solve. Okay, so for those of you who pause the video and try to solve it, if you solve it, I would like to congratulate you. But then I'm going to show you the winning move. So h4 first, and now king has to go to h6, and now this is checkmate. A nice checkmate. It wasn't a part of the game, but yeah, Capablanca won this game and essentially proved once again. I mean, Corzo blundered, but again, Capablanca was standing really good in this game. So okay, actually, what I wanted to show you for the end, why did I previously kind of bashed on Capablanca a bit, is actually this. So I will show you the results of the championship. As you can see here, Juan Corzo won the championship, so the championship of 1902 went to him, and Capablanca finished 4. As you can see, he lost both of the games to Corzo, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you a game with him in this championship, but unfortunately I couldn't find any. If some of you can find them, definitely send me and I will be glad to analyze them. Capablanca finished 4th in the end. I would say probably due to the fast games he played, but then again, okay, he was, he probably played too fast and didn't concentrate on the games, which in the end cost him, and he ended 4th. So okay, this is pretty much it for this video. One thing also, one fun fact I wanted to tell you about, since this was the only chess championship of Cuba that Capablanca participated in, he actually never became a Cuban chess champion. So in his entire chess career, he only participated in this one championship, and in the end, he never became a Cuban chess champion. He was a world chess champion, but not a Cuban chess champion. Yeah, fun fact for the end. But actually, also when I wanted to Google like Cuban chess champion in Google, Capablanca was the first result. So yeah, Google, you should definitely fix that. But okay, Capablanca is to this day probably one of the most famous Cuban chess players. So yeah, I could understand why is that the case. Yeah, so okay, this is pretty much it for this video. In the next few videos, we will be continuing with another part of the story. So yeah, if you enjoy these videos, please come along for the ride. This way, I would like to thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.